allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we have a roll call, please.
Okay. Trustee Henderson?
Here.
Trustee Smith? Here. Trustee Stetler? Trustee McKinnis?
Here.
Trustee Merkel?
Here.
Trustee Valentine? And Mayor Bacher?
Here, all right. We have a quorum, we can continue. First thing on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion, please?
Motion for the agenda. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion passes. All right, next is the executive session.
We go to executive session pursuant to sections 24.64024E and 24.64024G of the Colorado Revised Statutes for the purposes of determining positions, developing strategy relative to matters that they may be subject to negotiation and for consideration of documents protected by the mandatory non-disclosure provisions of the Colorado Open Records Act on relation to interview and discussion of non-finalist applicants for the town administrative position.
Now, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, that motion passes.
Let's.
All right,
Minute.
not quite.
In a minute, we'll let you know.
Okay, all right.
Oh, I put that someplace. So just a second, let me open this up. It is June 12th, 2023, and the time is 2:50 p.m. For the record, I am the presiding officer, Mayor Mary Bacher. As required by the Open Meetings Law, this executive session is being electronically recorded. Also present at this executive session are the following persons: Trustee Knudsen, Trustee Smith, Trustee McGinnis, Trustee Markle. This is an executive session for the following purpose. An executive session pursuant to sections 24-6-4024E and 24-6-4024G of the Colorado Revised Statutes for the purposes of determining positions and developing strategy relative to matters that may be subject to negotiation and for consideration of all documents protected by the mandatory non-disclosure provisions of the Colorado Open Records Act, all in relation to interviews and discussion of non-finalist applicants for the town administrator position. I caution each participant to confine all discussion to the stated purpose of the executive session and that no formal action may occur in the executive session. If at any point in the executive session, any participant believes that the discussion is going outside the proper scope of the executive session, please interrupt the discussion and make an objection. All right, now, what did you want to ask, Paige?
I just wanted to make sure I knew what questions were being asked, and
Yeah.
do you want to leave it at the two of you again?
Yeah, because Morgan has revised some of the questions,
Sure.
so we'll stick with his revisions.
So are you, time permitting, are you gonna try to go through 1 through 14, skipping
No,
10?
number 10 we struck
Okay,
because that's already covered elsewhere.
okay,
Number 11 we struck because that was in the first interview. Number 15 we struck because it's already covered in one of the above questions. And then number 5 and 6 we kind of mushed together into one question.
okay,
Then Morgan has, 5 and 6 ended up being,
Yeah, I have a rewrite of both of 5 and 6.
okay.
yeah, and then,
And
Mostly I wondered, you have 6
Yeah, number-
questions for Patrick.
so number 1 is basically the one I put in for everybody, and that ended up being 5 and 6.
Okay, so 1 is gone, okay,
And same with 2, that ended up being that same with Morgan's. We dropped number 3 on Patrick Marsh.
How about water, wastewater?
No, that was the
we had,
large development projects. So,
we had asked, I think the 2 candidates we were wanting specifically about their water and wastewater
Yeah.
treatment was Angela and Patrick.
right,
Okay, so you're gonna keep
We
that
asked
in,
Angela, so I think we should probably keep it
okay?
and as an asset to the town.
in.
But that one's also covered in,
What it takes,
number 9.
what it takes to be a
Yeah.
an administrator, okay?
Yeah, number 9, that's
Okay.
covered in that.
I think number 6 would be still an interesting question
Yeah.
to ask him.
right?
And 7
And then
is.
7 is a rewrite of number
Right.
5.
Okay, all right, thank you. I wanna know where we're
Right,
at.
and then, what we did sporadically is if there were other questions that you guys want to follow up on, you can ask follow-up questions as we go along. All right, I'm gonna knock on the door and tell them to let Patrick in. Oh, there's Rick. Come on in, Rick, we're about to let Patrick in. Good afternoon, Patrick. Can you hear us?
I can. Good afternoon. How are you all?
We are fine, and we can hear you, and life is good. Yay.
Good.
So
Good.
welcome
Good.
back to Paonia one more time.
Yeah.
All right, well, we're gonna ask you a whole bunch more questions again, as before, and then you can ask us if we have some time left over, and then we'll get back with you, okay?
All right. That sounds great. Thank you.
All right, well, I'm gonna start out, so please describe your professional work experience with grant writing, grant contract management and reporting, and specifically explain which elements you were directly responsible for.
Okay. All right. Well, I began my career working for a regional planning commission, and that was in the Illinois-Iowa Quad Cities, located right on the Mississippi River, about 2 hours west of Chicago. There, a lot of my responsibilities, probably about a third of my responsibilities, were grant writing responsibilities, where I wrote grants and administered grants for the 48 different local governments that made up the Regional Plan Commission. I've written grants for housing, transportation, open space and recreation, both for land as well as amenity development. I've written grants, a lot of grants in the area of planning grants, so communities could write and update their comprehensive plans or master plans. I see you guys are going through that process now. And, probably the most in terms of dollar amount and the most number of grants I've written have been in the area of transportation. That's just because that's where most of the federal dollars have been available during my career back in the 90s. That was the federal ICE-T program, if any of you remember that. And then that's went on for about 3 or 4 years. And then most recently, the Biden infrastructure grant. I wrote a $25 million grant for Fernley, Nevada, that was awarded about September of last year. And that was for a major road connection and railroad spurs into an industrial park. So major experience in the areas of grant writing and administration. I've probably written nearly 75 grants in my career. I don't know what the success rate is, but I'd say, right around 70% probably success rate in that area. So that's an area I feel very comfortable with. And I've written a lot of grants since becoming a local government manager, at least 2 or 3 a year for various programs. In terms of contract management, I've also done a lot in that arena. The regular contracts that local governments work with generally are like solid waste disposal, I've worked with small local companies on solid waste disposal and large national, somewhat international companies like Waste Management with their regular contracts. As a matter of fact, probably 3 years ago while in Fitchburg, I renegotiated our solid waste contract with Waste Management. So that's one area. We also had a lot of other contracts in place. We leased out our water tower to sell service providers. Those were all contracts. I believe we had about 7 or 8 in the last few communities I was with. And those usually were a little longer term contracts, like 5 to 8 years. And that was for rental of the tower. I've also done contract management of professional firms, both in the areas of legal services. I've worked on contracts with city attorney for legal services, consulting firms for planning, engineering, and other sorts of contracted services, whether that would be assistance with elections or assistance with some of the different park facilities. One of our communities that I worked in, we leased out the concession rights to the park system, including the pool and the different park shelters for like Little League games that were in the park. So a lot of contract management experience in all those cases, including the grant writing. I was the primary contact. I was the responsible individual for those assignments, both in carrying out the completion of that work and following up with the implementation and or administration work. Was there a third one? I'm sorry, I was thinking there was a third one, but I didn't write it down.
Now, just what specifics on the grants you were directly responsible for, but I think you've answered that, so thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So if you could enumerate your experience with emergency management and emergency management planning.
Yes. Dating way back to the early 2000s, obviously this really came to light after 9/11 in terms of training local government staff at a higher level. My first job as a local government manager was the village of Coal Valley. Village of Coal Valley, not much larger than your community, had been involved in several situations of flooding to the point where it was impacting homes, etc. But when it was mandated by the federal government that their employees, especially police, fire, and local government manager, go through this training, I participated in that federal training and certification. That was called NIMS, National Incident Management Systems. And that was NIMS training on how to respond to a variety of emergency situations. So at that point in time, I was a certified emergency manager. And I've served in the role as the emergency management director in Coal Valley, Illinois for 3.5 years, in Monona, Wisconsin for 8 years, and in Fitchburg, even though I was in Fitchburg for 5.5 years, I served in that role as emergency management director for 3 years. And then when we were fortunate to hire a new fire chief with experience in that arena, I was able to hand those responsibilities over to the fire chief. I've been in several, as I noted, situation rooms, the most of which came in flooding situations. But I was also in the situation room when we had a house explode in Fitchburg, Wisconsin in 2017. The FBI and I can't think of the other federal agency, firearms, tobacco, and can't remember the total name of the agency, but they showed up. They thought it was a terrorist attack at the time. And so we had a major situation room for that because the target, what they believed to be the target, was a person of a minority population that had been historically targeted for these type of activities. So it turned out it's still unfortunate, but fortunately it wasn't a terrorist attack. It turned out to just be a natural gas leak where the house exploded. And the individual did live, but was severely injured. So a lot of experience in that arena also.
Thank you. So please describe for us a typical meeting with department heads and how you ensure and track the elected officials' goals and policies are being implemented.
What was the first part about that?
A typical meeting with department heads, and then how you make sure that the Board of Trustees' goals and policies are being implemented.
Yeah, well, there's two different formats I use for department head meetings. One is the one-on-one meeting, and I'll usually meet with the department heads on a formal basis, individually at least twice a month. At those meetings, we go over their work plan. I have all of the department heads and staff do a annual work plan that addresses those goals and objectives that are outlined by you all as policymakers. So at those meetings, we're able to update. They're able to update me on the progress of the various projects they're working on that ended up being directives of yours through either the capital or the operating budget. I also have regular meetings, again, at least twice a month, with the entire team, with the management team. At those meetings, we do more of a roundtable discussion where we go over items of immediate concern, items that may be on an upcoming town agenda for the meeting. That way everybody's up to speed on those agenda items, including myself, obviously, that needs to present those a lot of times in conjunction with staff. But everyone goes around the room and gives an update of what's on the upcoming agenda. And then we do a second lap around the room where the individual department heads or key staff members give a report of the major projects that they're working on. Again, most of them would be priorities of you as elected officials, and areas that we may have concerns, areas where there's timeline issues, areas where there may be cost overruns, areas where maybe we're celebrating something. Maybe there was a grand opening of a building or a ribbon cutting for a new road. All of those things, good or bad, are shared with the entire team. I believe it's at these meetings that the staff's able to grow in terms of teamwork and the organization and a strong team organizational structure in the organization. So both the one-on-one meetings and the team meetings, and they all address your policy initiatives, because those are the priorities of each and every one of the staff members and the department heads' work program is to get those accomplished.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you.
If you could describe for us your working relationship with law enforcement in a previous municipality you've been a part of.
Yeah, I've always had a good working relationship with my police chief and command staff. Obviously, there's a lot of interaction between a town administrator and law enforcement, whether that be in conjunction with other departments or for community events, etc. The only I've managed the police department in the village of Coal Valley. The police chief and the staff was directly under me on both a day-to-day basis and a like hiring, firing, discipline basis. In Wisconsin, I don't know if you guys know, but we have a police and fire commission in Wisconsin. Police and fire commission hires, disciplines, and dismisses any law enforcement employees. That's an effort to sort of take politics out of public safety. I really don't know if it's successful or not, but that's just a different way of doing it. But in those cases, I'm responsible for the day-to-day management of those departments, but have no responsibility for hiring, firing, or discipline. But even so, the relationship with those individuals is important because there's so much interaction with public safety in all of our departments. Whether that be parks, patrolling the parks or keep an eye on different neighborhoods. A lot of the interaction I have with you all as elected officials is in regards to public safety. So communicating some of your concerns and priorities in that arena is always important. So I do what I can to build trust with the police command staff and the police chief.
Thanks. So how would you advise a board that was grappling with the need to provide affordable housing for their community and the community's desire to limit population density?
Yeah, that seems like that's a major problem right now, nationwide. Matter of fact, when I was in Fitchburg, Wisconsin, the city council put a moratorium on multifamily housing. Yet, as one of their top 5 priorities, they put senior and affordable housing on their agendas for the work plan. So how do you do that? I don't know. I can answer some questions, but I can't answer others, especially ones like that. But anyway, the elected officials need to understand that, especially at this point in time, and the public needs to understand that at this point in time, affordable housing, workforce housing, senior housing are all major issues nationwide. So many of the workforce issues we're looking at, economic development, even staffing, the local ice cream shop or gas station, whatever that may be, comes to having those individuals living in your community and being able to work, or living in close proximity and being able to work and afford what's going on there. So these workforce type housing developments, other names have been put on them like affordable housing or, low income housing. I think the common terminology now is workforce housing. These to provide the workforce you need for your community are critical, and that needs to be communicated clearly. I think people would really understand that. And then senior housing. Another one of the goals, right, is to serve all the residents of our community, and people, all of us age, all of us get old, and we want to keep those individuals in our community. We want to make sure that when it comes a point in time where they're not working anymore and maybe they're on a fixed income, they can still have a place to live in the community. We don't want to move them to a big city just because they have more housing, senior housing opportunities. We want to provide those amenities and those, I guess they wouldn't even be amenity. I would call them necessities to residents, to allow them to stay. A lot of communities have residents that were born and lived there their whole lives. Let's not kick them out when they get older. And I really emphasize that with the public, when they say, we're building apartments, we're building all these, affordable units. What's it going to do to the value of my home? Well, I'll tell you what it's going to do to the value of your home. It's going to increase it because you're going to have people that are be able to work in your community. And if they're done right, and and you keep an eye on these type of facilities, like you do any other housing development, they can be successful and they can help your community thrive. So I emphasize that with staff, I emphasize it with the elected officials, and whenever I get a public concern in regards to that, I'll go into the same explanation I just gave you, which may be too much for them, but they asked the question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So how would you handle a complex administrative task that requires coordinating multiple stakeholders and departments?
Yeah, that's why it's so important to have a good team atmosphere among your staff, especially amongst the key staff members and the department heads. There are so many situations where an initiative, coming from yourselves isn't just one department. A good example of that is, I'll go back to Monona, Wisconsin and Fitchburg, Wisconsin. I formed economic development teams, and they weren't just the economic development director and myself. There's a lot more that goes into economic development projects, whether that's writing an economic development plan or doing a development agreement or forming a special district. It involves finance, it involves planning, it involves legal, it involves public works. Who gets the infrastructure out to these developments? Who takes care of that infrastructure? So it involves public works. So in those situations, I had a 6-member economic development team made up of those individuals. And I'll emphasize that to all the staff when I begin working is that, a lot of these projects we're working on cross departmental boundaries. And it's going to be, critical, not just because I'm requiring it, but it's going to be critical for for a good outcome that we work together. So that was a good example. Another good example is, with park and rec facilities. Our police department works very closely, our fire department works very closely, and our planning department works very closely with the Parks and Rec department. Because again, when you're building these facilities, you want them safe. That's police and fire's job. Make sure these facilities are safe and get in and out of them. The buildings are safe. You want to put them in the correct spot. You want to be serving and the appropriate populations. So, we're looking at planning, Parks and Rec, police, fire, in a lot of situations that make up that team. So that's how I emphasize it. That's how I address those projects when they come to me, is I'll form the appropriate team, put that in place, and we'll work together on a regular basis to get it done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can you describe when you successfully implemented an organizational change? What challenges did you face and how did you overcome them?
Yeah. I've done a few. And as you guys know, change is never easy. You really need to, first of all, explain what you're doing and why you're doing it, to all of the impacted individuals. And I'll usually use the staff meetings for those opportunities. But a good example is when I was in Monona, Wisconsin. We were able to combine a couple positions into one. It was a big initiative because we were looking at, sort of downsizing a portion of the staff that had a lot of responsibility, that being public works and engineering. What I did was I combined the public works director and the city engineer into one position. We had a requirement in Wisconsin anyway that any public works director had to be a licensed engineer, civil engineer. So there was the opportunity in place that we were having our city engineer about a year away from retirement. So I looked forward and I said, okay, now's the time, to act. Let's see if we can combine these two positions into one. We could have one leader over the public works and engineering department, and we can utilize the resources we're saving to put into another position in the city. At that point in time, we didn't have a full-time planner. So my goal was to put the resources into the planning department, hire a full-time planner. That was a major change, really. Public Works Department didn't know how to take it. They thought, maybe this is the beginning of larger impacts to our department. Are we going to end up contracting services out, etc.? A lot of those questions coming at me. But it ended up being very successful. We were able to not only hire a planning director, but we were able to hire an assistant public works director that took on a little bit of that extra workload, with a little extra revenue that next year. And we were able to address other areas in the city that needed attention.
Thanks.
So Patrick, in your opinion, what are the most critical qualities and skills that an effective administrator should possess? And how do you embody those qualities?
Well, number one is I believe you need to be a good communicator. All of you want to be well informed as to what's happening in your community prior to hearing it from a neighbor, prior to hearing it from someone else. And that is the administrator's job, is to make sure that I'm communicating to you all on a regular basis, whether that is on the telephone, in person, via email, or written communication. So I believe the number one criteria for a good administrator is to be a good communicator. I believe second, it's integrity. An individual in this job has to be forthright and honest with you, both when making recommendations to you, and personally when, not personally, but honestly when we disagree. I'm always going to give you my professional opinion. Don't have to take it. That's not your job. Your job is to serve your constituents. But my job is to provide those recommendations. And I'm always going to put my best foot forward and make sure I'm giving you the most honest and best solution from my perspective. So I think integrity is important. Another one, I believe, and I don't know if many people would say this, but I believe a good leader, a good administrator needs to have empathy, to be empathetic. You're dealing with not only staff people and public, you know, that are coming to you on a regular basis. Some of them, you know, are having bad days. Some of them have things going on in their personal lives. Some of them, you know, are just stressed out, you know, from their jobs or whatever. I believe it's any good leader's responsibility to sort of read the room and understand when you need to have empathy for people, when you need to maybe stand back a little bit, give individuals time, you know, both to, you know, either be by themselves or to communicate with them. Sometimes they're looking just for an ear to bend, but that's very important. And then lastly, I would say ethical, and then I'll summarize, you know, why I believe I cover these traits. Lastly is ethical. We as a professional association of city and local government managers have a code of ethics that we follow. We need to do that in a professional manner. We need to keep ourselves out of politics. We need to keep ourselves out of situations that are really, you know, up to you all as elected officials. I shouldn't be out there, you know, lobbying for one individual to be elected for a position. I shouldn't be pushing someone's position on another individual. My job is to be professional, provide information, and be there for questions, concerns that all of you may have. I believe in my 19 years as a local government manager, and you know, in over 25 years as a public official. I've lived by those characteristics of a good leader. I've made it a point to be a good communicator. I've made it a good point to be empathetic, to be ethical. All of those items that I noted. I've made it through my career to this point without any ethical misconducts through my association. And they're not hard to get, really. I mean, you can really do something very simple and mess up in that way. But I think about things before I do them. I listen. And I think that's the most important form of communication. Or I should say attribute of communication is listening. Listening to all you and hearing what direction you want to go. And then verbally or another form of communication, getting that information back to you. So I guess that's hopefully that answered your question there.
Yes, thank you.
What strategies do you use to maintain confidentiality and handles the sensitive information involved in your administrative duties?
What do I use? Could you say that again? I'm sorry.
What strategies do you use to maintain confidentiality and to handle the sensitive information that's involved in your administrative duties?
Yeah, that's that's where I believe there's really a fine line that leads to a gray area. You know, a lot of local government, the big words right now is transparency, right? We as local government leaders, whether that's elected officials or staff, we want to be as transparent as possible to the public, to business, really to anybody, the media, another good example, to anybody that approaches us with a question. But we have to ask ourselves, and this is my strategy, before I answer a question, I mean, in regards to anything, I ask myself, okay, does this involve a personnel issue? Is this involve HIPAA? Someone's health information. Does this involve a development agreement where I'm violating, a section of the development agreement in terms of confidentiality? Does this involve, another area of, let's say, a legal issue, a lawsuit, something like that? Does this involve a lawsuit that any statements I give could be a detriment to our situation? So whenever I'm approached, I run those thoughts through my head. I want to make sure that it doesn't hit any of those hot button spots, hot button topics. And then if it doesn't, I provide as much transparency as I can. If it does, I would just say that, at this point in time, I can't comment on this situation. And, I try to give them, let them know that as soon as we're able to release, this type of information, we'd be happy to get it to you. And for the most part, people understand. I think the media, they'll dig in a little harder than the average person, and they'll try to get information out of you. One area that I really work with the staff on is that if they're ever asked a question and they're concerned maybe about providing some information that shouldn't be provided, I always let them know to contact me. And I'll be the individual that makes those appropriate contacts. And I'll answer whoever's question it may be. It's they're not confronted with these situations as much as somebody in my shoes. Therefore, I think I'm a little better prepared to give the answer or not. So I work with staff closely on those different strategies and how to provide confidentiality and or transparency.
Thank you.
Thank you. So how do you stay updated on the latest trends and technologies in the administrative field? And can you provide examples of how you have applied new tools or approaches to enhance your work?
Yeah, that's important, especially today when things are changing so quickly. You can begin an initiative now and it may not be the best practice, a year from now. But what I do to stay on top of my profession is, first of all, I'm a member of International City Managers Association. I believe that they provide very good briefings, regular articles. They also provide consultation on different topics that I may have a question on or looking for direction with. The other thing I do is I stay well connected with my peers, whether that be neighboring communities, out in Colorado, or people I've worked with before. A lot of these issues are universal. And when I mean by universal, I don't mean every country in the world, but I mean they're universal to our profession. When you're looking at best practices and human resources and, what do you do? What's the best way to form some tax incentive area for business? Things like that. What's the best way to run a Main Street program? I'll go out to the people that have been successful and I'll ask them those questions. I've met a lot of people now over the years. A lot of them are really good friends with me that have the same position that I currently have. So I'll lean on them heavily. And then lastly, I'll go to the experts in the field. If it's something like IT or engineering or, a field that, is very intense when you're looking at detail. A lot of the public works projects come in that arena. Road construction is a good example. I'll go to the staff on hand that's involved with that, and I'll ask them to contact their peers and give me their opinion of, how do we stay on top of these issues and what's the best way to present that information to anybody. A good example of something I worked on really recently was the salaried employees of the city basically received like a flat increase every year, and that was based on what the unions were being paid. So if a police officer got a 2% bump, the non-represented employees, they got a 2% bump. What I wanted to do is I wanted to provide some sort of incentive for the non-represented employees to that excelled to maybe be rewarded a little bit more. So I began a performance measurement component of our evaluation and financial reward system. That performance measurement tool was put in place to basically reward the rock stars, the people that went above and beyond the call of duty in your organization, or maybe did something, really exceptional. I don't know what that may be, but something really exceptional. A senior center director saving a life, or a lifeguard saving a victim, something like that. Or somebody just, putting in the extra effort to do something that was a lot of work in a given period of time. Anyway, I was able to put this performance measurement tool in place. And our city council at the time was able to reward it. At first, it wasn't that much money. I think it was $10,000 a year, and we had 90 some employees. Like 1 out of every 10, reached the level of I deemed exceptional, and then they split whatever the reward was, or the line item was. With $10,000, it's not a lot of money, but it's something, and it makes the employees. It gives them, a little more incentive to go that extra mile. It's really good for the workplace environment, morale. It helped them, and it's still successful. I was there from 2007 2015. I implemented that then, so I guess it wasn't very recently, but this career goes quick. And then it's still there today. They're still utilizing it, and the council has upped that pool of money they're putting in that line item significantly. I believe it's close to $100,000 a year now. They're awarding their top performers. So.
Nice. How do you find yourself handling conflicting priorities and deadlines? Can you give an example of when you had to make a tough decision regarding resource allocation or time management?
Every day. No. No, there's always going to be, conflicting priorities amongst you all. That's why you go by a consensus, right? The majority wins on decisions. There's going to be conflicting priorities in the daily workload of all the staff. Do they work? Do they get their paperwork done in a given day, or do they attend to a resident's call about some damage that one of the snowplow trucks did to their, mailbox or something like that? The way I always address prioritization of issues is I look at the item that would be seen by others as being the most urgent. What fire do we need to put out? Obviously, the biggest fire, right? We need to put out a fire that involves, public safety. We want to save people. So you walk into every day in this role as an administrator or a manager, and you think you have your day planned, and then things happen. Like all of you at work, I'm sure. You end up getting about half the work you wanted to get done because things came up that were more urgent at the time, and the things you decided that were more urgent. And that's what I do. Obviously, if I'm just doing, an update or a monthly report to you, and one of you contacts me with a question, I'm going to address that question. I'm going to look into it, and I'm going to get an answer for you. If we have a situation where, we had maybe a public safety situation in one of the neighborhoods, I'm going to draw my attention to that event, make sure all of you are informed, make sure I'm working closely with the police, the media, etc., to make sure that those concerns are all answered. So that's the way I do it. It's no, magic wand. I analyze it as what's the biggest need here at this time, and I think my experience has given me a good skill set to make that determination.
Thank you. So tell us more about your experience with water and wastewater treatment systems.
Yeah, that's always fun, isn't it? Those are the things people forget about in government, is that, we have to deal with everything you can't see, everything underground, everything that's behind fences that is taking care. People forget when they flush a toilet, it needs to be taken care of by somebody. But I've had extensive experience both in water and sewer infrastructure. I've had it from two different directions. I've always been in a community that had their own water resources, so we were doing all of we were administering all of the water supply to all the residents in each one of the communities that I represent. So I've had to deal with capital improvement programming to make sure that our infrastructure was up to speed, that our maintenance was in place for those facilities, and that when we did have a development or an expansion in the community, we had the appropriate capital and infrastructure expansion strategies in place. So water, a lot of experience, more so than sewer or wastewater treatment plants. Probably about 60% of my career I've worked with contracting wastewater treatment through a regional treatment facility. And in some cases that has been like a quasi-governmental entity. And in some situations it's the county that have handled regional wastewater treatment facilities. But I have had two local government management positions where we've had our own facilities. Went through one major upgrade most recently when I was out in Fernley, Nevada, where they actually went from a pooling ponds for wastewater treatment to a full out design and engineering plan for an entire new facility to handle increased waste in the future. So something that I feel well versed in. I wouldn't say it's probably my strongest area, but something I know where to find the answers, working with engineering consultants in a public works department.
Thank you.
Okay, so your resume focuses a great deal on economic development. What do you feel are some of your other accomplishments?
You know, you're talking about professional accomplishments or personal accomplishments?
Professional.
That's the right answer.
Yeah. Well, I think one of my proudest professional accomplishments has been my ability to train and expand the horizons of staff. I've always taken it personal in my position to make sure that these individuals are not just, doing their job every day, but they have the opportunity to learn, to be better employees, to move up in their positions. And, whether that be with our organization or another, they're able to move on and advance in their careers. I feel like I've done that. I've had some very successful department heads that have gone on and sit in the same seat that I sit on as a manager. I've had interns that have advanced to the point of department heads. And that's, I believe, is a great accomplishment. I think that shows good leadership, and I'm happy about that. Other areas, in terms of tax base, I believe it's important for any local government to continue to grow somewhat. You don't want to be, you guys don't want to be, a large suburban community. You want to continue to grow smart, and you want to have the appropriate amenities in place for your residents. But in order to do that, you need to continually look to improve on your tax base. Each and every position I've had, I've left the community in a better position than when I started. And that's in terms of total valuation, assessed valuation in the community. Each community is I've left in a better situation. And I believe we've done that through good, solid, well-planned growth strategies, good, solid, well-planned housing opportunities, and good, solid, well-planned work opportunities for people in the region and in the community. So I'm happy about that. And then lastly, I think one of the accomplishments that I'm most proud of is that, I put myself through college. I put myself through my master's program, and I was able to receive ICMA credential management status in a relatively quick time period. I was the first one in my family to graduate from college, and I was the worst one in my family to have a master's degree. So, not saying that that's, makes me any better than anybody, but it was something I set out to do. So I'm proud of that accomplishment.
Okay,
Thank
thank you. Any follow-up questions from the board?
Not at this point.
Okay, so questions for us, Patrick?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'd like to hear about your timeline, then I have some other more specific questions.
Okay, so this is our last second round interview, so we're gonna come up with finalists relatively quickly and let you know. And then we're gonna need to bring finalists out relatively quickly and do our final interviews and come to a decision. So we definitely want to have something in place in the next couple of weeks, at the very latest.
Okay, good. I'm excited about that. Secondly, what I might have asked this before of you, but what is the number one trait you're looking in your next administrator? Is there an area of immediate need right now in leadership, or do you believe that someone could come in and just cover all the facets of management?
What do you guys think?
But I'll take a quick stab. One of the biggest challenges we have is our water sewer system. We have numerous millions of dollars of improvements to make, and there are grants in the works right now to work on our, water plant, water tank. We have one water plant that's not operating, it's not, treating water. So that, to me, is somebody needs to be able to come in, see the big picture and see the details, get all the download on where we are on grants and loans, and be able to pick up that ball and run with it.
That's good. Yeah, that's critical. That is critical.
The other thing is we have a big CDOT grant that's close to $1 million. And we're having a lot of trouble getting CDOT to move forward with us on this. And so somebody who can help push us to push them forward to get this done in the timeline to fulfill the grant would be really good. And then to supervise that whole project, because none of us on the board or really on staff have experience.
Was that through the infrastructure bill? Did you receive that grant through the federal infrastructure?
Filtered down to the Colorado Department of Transportation through the infrastructure bill, yeah.
Yeah, that's the same one I most recently worked on. Yeah, you do need to stay on top of the state. They're overwhelmed with their own projects too, and they sort of put the cities behind their bigger major state projects. So you need to stay on top of that, and I've done that before.
Oh, good, okay. That would be a help. Okay. Other people? Rick?
What I see is what we have had in the past is not a very professional leadership in the town. We're amateurs and rank amateurs at that. And since Leslie's been here, we've learned a ton, but we really need to continue that. And we need somebody that will be the professional leader and stand up and tell us we need to do things differently. I value that highly in a candidate. I want to be told when I'm screwing up because I don't have the expertise. And the professional advice is the biggest thing for me. I need some help with what we're doing.
Yeah, that's that honesty and communication thing is that, sometimes you're not going to like the things I tell you. And that's fine. At the end of the day, we're not going to be any worse off for it, but I'm going to tell you things factually, and I'm going to give you my best advice I can give you in every situation. And I'll tell you when you're doing something wrong, and I'll tell you when you're doing something right. It's that easy.
Yeah, Dave.
One thing that I've seen in my 4 years on the board has been a big change in the confidence of our staff. And I feel we're in a very good place right now with some of our department heads and some of our line people. What I'd be concerned about is a manager coming in and taking that in the wrong direction. I want to see the continued acceleration of best practices, of confidence, of those kind of things that we've seen develop over the last couple of years. And I want to see a continued incline in those capabilities.
Yeah, I think one of the worst things any new manager, administrator can do is come in and make change right away. You need to sit back and evaluate the whole organization and see how good and successful they are. But no, if something's going good, why try to fix it? Let's take and build on that and maybe, get them to the next level.
Other people?
No, I think.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I just want to echo Rick's sentiments. I think that's probably one of the key traits that I found that Leslie has brought is the willingness to share her experience and to give the board some feedback as far as how we might not to set our priorities, but our approach to how we operate. I think that has been really helpful. And if we can get someone to do that, that's not the end, of course, but that's been very helpful for us, I think, in the past few months.
Yeah, that's great. It sounds like you had a great person in place for that interim position, and that's great to hear. A lot of people enter that position and just try to go through the motions while someone's being hired. But it's nice when somebody steps up like that. It's good for the profession.
Yeah, it's been excellent for us. It's
Good.
really- All right, well, thank you very much for taking your time. We will be in touch, Patrick.
Hey, thank you very much. I look forward to hearing from you, and I'd love to be part of your community.
Okay, thank you, Patrick.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Okay,
So we go back to the regular session.
no, I think let's discuss the candidates we have and then come up with some consensus and then go back into regular session and make a decision on who we want for finalists.
Well, I can say he is my first choice.
I would agree with you. I've been checking my gut through all the people that we have interviewed, and the three that we did last week. Angela, she was one of my higher up ones when we did the first round of interview, and she really fell down in the second round of interviews. And I mean, all through this interview with Patrick today, I was feeling really good. Really good. Leslie, why don't we get your opinion too?
Can I throw in one more
Yeah,
thing?
please.
I'm really compelled by, of the four candidates, two are RCMA members, which is
You mean
very
ICMA?
compelling to me. ICMA, yeah.
Yeah.
Stefan is the other one.
Yeah.
So I am very compelled, and I'd love to hear Leslie's take on that. People that are, and Patrick has the county manager, or whatever that CM stands for, certification. I don't remember, no, Stefan was up there too.
Yeah.
In ICMA, which is a big plus for me. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
So you're asking me what I thought of Patrick, or,
Sure.
well, I absolutely think he can do the job. So, and I'm an ICMA member, so I think it's important not only because, of the resources, but because they police their members. And yeah,
Yeah.
so, yeah, I think, when you're choosing the finalists, the one thing is I would not eliminate anybody that you don't think you would, that you think you might hire, because you've already seen what happens. People drop out. And I want to stack your odds in getting somebody, if that makes sense.
So what would you suggest, if we were to choose two finalists, what would you suggest we would say to the other people?
Could I throw out, what
Yeah.
happens if we choose three?
We could choose three. I mean, that's not a problem.
Just seems, I don't know, an odd number sounds better to me.
Yeah, we could choose three. I mean, we could choose all four if we wanted to.
Well, let's not be excessive.
Yeah, but
Well,
the dropping out of who would be third, I think is.
reflecting on this over the weekend, and the piece of data here that's important is we've got so many strong candidates that I was thinking, let's bring a bunch of them here. What's a bunch?
Yeah.
Go for 3 or 4. And when I was doing this thinking, I was processing the fact that we did have probably that many really strong people.
Mhm.
So what's the trade-off? The trade-off is, well, supposedly it's gonna cost us.
Yeah. it costs
Yeah.
money.
Yeah. But I thought I heard a comment about the last round that, or the first round actually, that in fact it really didn't cost us as much as we thought.
Well, it didn't cost us anything to bring anybody here.
The first time, well, 2 people came, but then
What
it
am
was
I
our
thinking
year,
of?
and then other got
Yeah.
promoted from Texas, so
Right.
we got off pretty cheap.
Right, and then
We
the
were
second
flying.
round, we didn't pay for anybody because nobody came,
Yeah, that's
so.
not, obviously not the one I meant.
Everybody's flying, but-
So I don't know, we've sunk this much time and this much effort, and from what I understand, all of you saying and Leslie saying, is we hit pay dirt
we got a lot of strong candidates. And I thought, why squander that opportunity? Let's bring people here. Let's pay them money to bring more, however you define more, rather than fewer.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my 2 cents on that. I just feel, and part of that whole equation is that I was impressed by a lot of them, but I also heard a lot of you being impressed. And heard the assessment that we have a lot of strong candidates. I've heard it several times. So anyway, that's my argument there.
Okay, so what do the rest of you guys think?
So finalists are, in order of interview, Kevin, Stefan, Angela, and Patrick, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I like Stefan, Angela, and Patrick in no particular order.
Who was your second one? I'm sorry.
Stefan, Angela, and Patrick in no particular order. So I think if we're gonna bring more than two, we bring three. Everybody vote their top three, and bring 3 people in.
I almost want to bring Kevin,
Bring Kevin too.
I like Kevin. Yeah.
because I think we have so many competing things going on. We have personality and experience. I think Patrick has all the right experience, but his personality may not mesh at all. I mean, I'm not getting that impression, but you never know until they show up.
Well, and I think too, I mean, they all have good experience. That's the thing. They all have good experience.
Leslie, before we move on, what about Patrick?
Did you just ask me? I heard the first part of the question. What was the whole question?
Before we move on any farther, we never did hear.
She did. She said he do the job.
I could take less of that medicine.
I've got a
Maybe you
question.
should share.
You're right. I'm sorry.
I've got a question. How do you feel that Patrick would mesh with the staff we have now?
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure, but that's one of those things when if you bring them out, then the staff will be part of the interviews. I think we should do the interviews the way we did them before, because I think that was really helpful. But I guess that my advice is that you should bring everybody out that you think you might want to hire, because as we've already seen, there will be people who will drop out between now and the interview. So you're not going to actually be paying for all of them.
Probably. Yep.
And we've invested an enormous amount of time and effort and money so far.
Yep.
Why cheap out on it, man?
Right.
Now we're
I
gonna
agree. Bring them all. Bring them all.
So, what do you think, Dave?
Well, I wasn't involved in the follow-up interviews.
Right.
I really don't have an opinion on the top candidates. I defer to the board for that.
Okay.
However, in my experience, just bringing it down to very narrow, I think you're really wise and broad people to bring in, because your chances of people just falling off the table for one reason or another after they see the community, after they learn the staff, after they hear some of the things that are going on. One thing that surprised me with all the candidates, not one candidate has asked us, who's staying on the board?
Oh, yes, one did.
yeah,
The second
yeah.
one.
The last one.
What's the word?
Stefan
Stefan
did.
To me, a professional manager wants to know, you're hired, and then when's the next election?
Yeah.
And who's got your back?
And that was
And
my
I've not heard that from
Stefan did.
anybody.
Stefan.
Did you get a chance to-
His question was,
Yeah.
he knew how many people, he said like 4 of us were gonna be out of our terms next year.
Right.
And asked what happens then.
Honestly,
Yeah.
I'm very impressed with the amount of research that I think of the 4 candidates that we've interviewed right now, I feel like Stefan is the one that has the best idea about what he's getting himself into.
Yeah.
And he he hasn't expressed that he's not interested.
Right.
So
That's surprising.
that is, yeah.
I think that the thing with Stefan though is, I'd love to know how old the child is, because up until sixth grade, we're wonderful. At sixth grade, it falls off like.
I feel like it might, I can't remember, I spoke with him. He's got 3 kids. I think this one's the youngest, but I can't tell you when they're gonna hit middle school.
Right,
But
because,
he has done research. He was very confident that Colorado had things to offer now, and he seemed to look into Delta County too. He was pretty impressed, he said. He told me, like I was telling you first go around, he knew way more about our school system here in Delta County than.
but I don't know how many people have left when their kids are junior high, simply because the school sucks.
And that whole reasoning struck me as anyway, whichever way the wind blows kind of argument, that if it turns against, exactly what we're talking about now, turns against his favor, then, he's off to the southern
Oh,
place.
that's true too. I mean, yeah, I mean, who knows, the next word, fire whoever we hire too, I mean.
I know, it's a bit of a crapshoot, isn't it?
Right.
Now.
The other crapshoot is if you got 4 people coming in and you decided there's your number 1 candidate. You get into negotiations and it falls apart.
Right, that too.
Yeah, so when we have a bigger stable of people to look at, we're probably better
I
off.
mean,
So, go ahead.
I think I was probably gonna say what you were about to, like, if we're okay with bringing all 4 candidates, I think we should.
Okay, so,
Because Leslie, we're good on the budget, right? Admin budget?
yeah,
You mean, do you have enough money to pay for them to come?
yes.
Do I think you might be going? I have no idea, first of all. We have reserves though. And so you may dip into your reserves, but I guess what I think is you're in a big year of transition. And if you reduce your reserves a little bit, it's money well spent. So you're not gonna run out of money. You've got plenty of reserves.
Not gonna run out.
Rick, you've been a bit quiet.
I believe that we ought to bring all 4. Just because I saw what happened last time and we kind of got blindsided and then all of a sudden we were in the weeds. And with all 4, I think we have a much better chance of picking the best candidate, but we also have the second best and third best. We don't have to take the only one that wants to be here,
Right.
The other thing is that those other 2, at least from what I've heard from what you're saying, those first 2 candidates we brought out wouldn't make this wash.
Oh, no, I mean,
Maybe
yeah, this group is so much better than the first.
Yeah,
not even close.
We have elevated.
Oh, my God, yes, so much better.
So with that in mind, can we use the same packet information? Is there any reason, did the questions that when we had them look at our budget and you had put together that inbox, is there any reason we can't use that again? I mean, it's not public information, is it? Other than the video, there is a video of them responding to the budget question and the inbox question. So what I want to know is, can we just use what we used with Evan and that other gal for
I
the
don't remember.
inbox?
So I have a comment about that. When I had made that suggestion, what I was looking for is, I think I might not have been as direct as I am now, but your budget is awful. It's one of the worst budgets I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And Michelle agrees. So what I thought the question should be is, how would you take the budget that we had in 2022 and restructure it so it works better as an informational document? And what ended up happening is people were explaining what a budget is. And that wasn't the point. My point was, can you take something that isn't working and tell us how it would work better? And I think that's why I picked that 2022 budget is, it's a mess. And I would want to hear how, and then you can hear from that candidate how they would organize information for you and the public in a way that people can understand how much money you have. Because there's no way to do it with that budget. So,
And then
Yeah.
did you like the inbox exercise, Leslie?
what was it? I can't remember that one.
Different documents in it. And then
Yeah, they had to choose their priorities on the documents.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you could do that. I think that was fine.
Can we use the same one?
Let's use the same one.
Yeah, why
I don't
not?
think it,
Yeah.
Because I mean, they might glean something from the, I point there because they were at the podium in front of the public answering, but if we can reuse them, I say let's do
Sure,
it.
yeah, why not?
Yeah, you're not interviewing the same people.
We'll see. They could see the answers on video.
Well,
Because
the answers that
it
other
was
people-
public, right?
Yeah.
They could view the answers of Evan and, but on the budget, it won't matter. That part is, there's nothing to glean from
Right.
there, but there could be something to glean from them, their inbox exercise, if we recreate it. I don't really care if we use it again and they watch it. Do you?
No.
You were the author, it was a lot of work. Okay, cool.
The only candidate who's likely to find that is Stefan. And he probably already found it, so we're.
And then I really liked the citizen panel.
Yes,
Do you want to see if we get the same citizens to come back?
Well, the problem with that was we had a big mover and shaker who, I don't know if I want to use the word kowtow, but it didn't bully, but sort of used the, in her influence to sort of push the whole group in one direction. And
Oh, we wouldn't know that. You know that
I
because
do know that.
Linda was on there.
Yes, I
Right,
I
okay.
do. And I think you know who I'm talking
Yes,
about.
I do.
And it just, it turned the whole thing into a useless exercise in terms of
Okay.
that committee. What I heard was the staff group was useful and productive, and there was serious discussion. And then what was the other of us, I guess?
Yeah, that was just the two other committees. Well, I still think the citizen committee is a good idea, but now should we reopen it?
Really, really careful. Oh, yes.
yeah, we can,
Reopen it to to anybody.
Yeah.
And, right, I was gonna say we should be really careful about who's on it. That gets into tricky business of
It certainly does.
influencing and biasing ourselves. But it just, it was very problematic.
well, we can just do that next meeting. We can just announce.
Yeah.
We're looking for people to serve on the staff selection committee for board, and please send letters of interest.
So,
Yeah,
I'm a little hesitant about that because I'd rather we use our knowledge in the community to appoint a group that we invite. You go on the panel, and that way we don't have to make this public choice of people.
well, and that's the thing,
Self-
because, yeah, because like Sharon really got her nose bent out of shape because she wasn't chosen.
Yeah, exactly, and so I want to stay away from that kind of dynamic, and I want us to really think as a board about who would be, it's kind of like what we've done on the housing task force. We sat down and said who would be really good, and as a group, we tried to come up with who we thought would be really impactful and helpful in the process, rather than just being victims of
but that was
whoever
easier.
applied.
It was kind of easier.
It was easier, I'm just saying the process, where everyone should just put their letters out there and self-nominate. I got a problem.
I'm a little hesitant to choose.
Actually, somebody brought that up, this housing task force that is appointed by the board, that nobody else knows about, doesn't pass the smell test.
This isn't the same.
It's when we're sitting here and then we choose without offering the opportunity to citizens to participate, when we're saying, oh, I know who we need to do this job. And we're selecting our committees without offering somebody who we may not even know. Maybe there's somebody who we don't know who's out there. We don't know everybody. And it's hubris to assume that we will be good at picking the right group.
Yeah.
And it's also not transparent. So I'm dead set against us hand selecting the group of people that are gonna be
How
in any
many-
citizens committee.
I-
And this housing thing,
Because the housing thing was
It's a
deliberately
different-
done to get people who represented a facet of the community
Right.
business. That's why it was done that way.
well,
But that's, I
it's
don't
still
feel
not-
like we
it's-
should be doing
it's still
the
not
citizen
transparent.
panel.
I'm looking for transparency.
And, well, and this is not a public meeting. It's part of this, it's part of the contract for the housing.
Right.
So it's not considered a
Looking for
publicly held
transparency.
meeting.
And this is off topic.
Yeah, but anyway, I am not comfortable with us choosing who goes on the citizen panel personally.
How did we pick the self-appointed nominees last time around?
Did they submit letters?
Yeah.
That's not picking, or
Oh,
did we choose everybody?
No, we didn't.
No, we didn't.
No, we took a certain.
I remember a list.
Yeah.
But when
So-
somebody comes to us versus us going to them, it's
Right.
completely different.
Right.
Right.
And I think we didn't
Some-
really get enough public notice for that. I think we need more notice. We need it
Yeah.
widely disseminated
But
and
we-
not just on the town website. How about we put it on KVNF? It's free. And as long as you get it in on Wednesday, it goes on Friday. And then they play it every day.
Okay, Leslie?
I have another option to offer. When I interviewed for the city manager in Salida a long time ago, remember when it was, but they did this thing where we got up, I think there were 3 candidates, and we got up in front of the audience, and the audience was allowed to submit their questions, and they had an MC. And so then the MC picked the questions. I don't remember I have no idea if they sorted through them, but then they asked the questions one by one, and we had to answer them. So that controlled, getting crazy questions or having an audience member dominate. And then the whole audience and anybody could come, then voted for their favorite candidate on their way out. And it kind of equalizes it, so everybody gets input, but it also, I think, particularly in Peonia, you've got to worry about a couple of people dominating a question and answer situation. So it kind of gets rid of that part too, and gives everybody an equal playing field. I'll just put that out there.
And that could work during the community meet and greet. That could be part of the community meet and greet. Then could be a question and answer period. And again, you would have to submit your questions. Somebody would, yeah.
So the call to the public then isn't who wants to serve on this committee, it's what question would you have for our potential new town manager?
Right.
And then,
They all get the same question. Boom.
yeah, and then we have a pool of questions that somebody, maybe not us, somebody can choose from.
Yes, Leslie, we're pointing at you.
Yeah, I mean, I like that. I think it gives the whole community at least the playing field to show up and participate.
Right.
And even if your question isn't asked, you get to witness some of them answering a question and form an opinion.
Right.
Yeah.
And I suggest that we have a time limit for a question,
Right.
so we don't have a question that's 5 minutes long. And the candidates also have a time limit for answering that question, so that we don't take this and we expect one person runs with it for 15 minutes and the other one had answered for 2.
3 minutes.
Mhm,
3 minutes
There you
answers.
go.
Well, and again, like this
Good
is,
point.
with this structure, the community member isn't asking their question.
Right,
And so,
yeah.
and so,
MCs.
yeah, the MC becomes the kind of buffer between, yeah.
Can I just ask a procedural question, Leslie? When you were hired, were you each asked to answer that same question? And somebody started different times so they couldn't all, do you see what I'm saying? So everybody gets to hear the other person's answer.
Yes,
Expound
they did get to hear everybody's answer.
So you might change who gets the
Change
answer
the
first.
order, yeah.
So Leslie, are you willing to go through the questions and be our MC?
Sure.
How diplomatic of you.
This is why we pay you the big bucks, Leslie.
I know. Just anyway, yeah, that, I mean, I think, I always thought that worked really well. And it took away that part where you have to worry about somebody dominating the conversation and all that stuff.
One last procedural question. Did you ask for the questions at the beginning of the meet and greet, or did you give people an opportunity to email them to you ahead of time?
Well, I was an interviewee, so I don't know how they did it.
Don't know,
Um,
they handed them in on paper
We
at
could
the
do
beginning?
both. We could do both.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you could, I mean, I think you could set it up any way you wanted to. I kind of like people submit their questions ahead of time. The issue that you get into is with an MC, they're probably gonna have to go through them and consolidate and stuff like that. So you're not asking, that's why an MC helps.
Right.
And to have them a little bit ahead of time would help. You may get a few stragglers on the night of, or is that verboten?
I mean, I think if we give the community enough time, we have the questions, submitted beforehand. I think having been an MC a couple of times, having like, oh, here's a new piece of information right before we start is maybe not, not the best. And then we can, like, as you say, if we get 6 questions that are basically the same question, those get consolidated and rise to the top, because that is apparently like what our community. So I think our ability to really like look at questions and consolidate and prioritize that way might actually be really beneficial as well.
Yeah. Okay,
But now, when?
Perhaps,
when, that's the thing. If,
Go
so
ahead.
it can go, I cut you off, Rick, go ahead.
perhaps we could announce it at the meeting in the
Right.
mayor's portion.
Right.
And that, get your questions ready and have them submitted by a deadline date,
Right.
next Friday?
Well,
Not this
Well,
Friday.
yeah, we need to come up with a timeline as to when we're gonna start inviting these people to come, so we need to set that up.
Yeah.
And then we can backfill from that, is what we want for all the rest of this. So we need to look at schedules and see when people are, is anybody gonna be out of town? I mean, the last week of June is CML, and 4 of us are gonna be gone.
I will be gone as well.
So, last week of June, out, so we probably need to
So
do
next
it.
week.
well, we'll never get it by here next week.
No.
I don't think
So first week of July then.
Maybe I shouldn't be so negative, sorry.
I mean, if they come first week of July, they get to see chariots.
Yeah,
This
this is what it's like every weekend.
So, yeah, if we do it the end of the first week in July, the 5th, 6th, and 7th. Or 6th, 7th, and 8th, or something like that.
Let me get there, hang on.
Can we try for next week? You did tell Patrick that we'd be sorting this out in 2 weeks.
Or CML runs the 25th to the 28th. We could try the 29th, 30th, and 1st.
Yeah, we'd have to do, because CML, there's something Wednesday morning, so that would leave us with Thursday and Friday, which should be enough. How about the 22nd and the 23rd? Did you talk about that, or you think that's too soon?
Yeah, that gives us,
I'm not thrilled about doing those 2 days.
okay.
Okay,
Okay.
so we could do the 29th or the 30th.
Saturday, 24th, 25th?
No. I could do Sunday, Monday. Nobody's gonna
No,
do Sunday.
no, Monday, 26th is out.
What about, so the week of the when is CML? I'm sorry.
26th through 28th.
Oh,
So the 29th,
And the 30th would be the only, yeah.
I will not be here on the 29th and the 30th.
I will be out of town.
Okay.
Because
So,
when are you going?
first,
I'm in Flagstaff, the 24th through the 26th.
I'm gonna write this down. I'm having trouble.
first week of July then is is what we're looking at.
So Paige is not available the 22nd and the 23rd.
I'm not.
Yeah, actually, I'm still in Flagstaff on the 27th. I may not be back until the 28th. And that's what we see in all days anyway. I mean, 26, 27, 28.
Yeah.
It's the same days I'm on.
I mean,
since
I
this-
hate to kind of stall momentum, but I think if we do the first week of July, that gives enough time for communities to submit questions and for our MC to kind of collate them. It also, like, if I was an applicant, I don't know how I would feel if it was like, okay, next Tuesday, let's fly out. Like, we have to give these people time enough to plan around what we're asking them to do. I don't know if we want to show them cherry dates or not. I mean, it is Delta County. It's a way to have them meet the whole county and not just the town, which,
But
you know.
finding them a place to stay.
Right.
That's another good.
Maybe start on the 5th? Because I think Cherry Days
Is
aren't
the-
they actually doing it on the 4th?
Look
Yeah.
up, somebody look up the schedule for Cherry Days.
It's the 3rd and the 4th, that Monday and
Okay.
Tuesday.
Yeah, they're actually doing the parade on the 4th, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 5th,
6th,
6th, 7th. I will personally be gone the 7th. Every Friday I go to Ridgeway to run a coffee cart in their farmer's market. But that doesn't mean that we can't.
Well, because if what we had done, let's go back through how we did it the
We
first
did
time.
it, we had,
They
I've got the whole
arrived.
schedule on my computer.
Good, because they arrived and they got a tour of all the
Right.
infrastructure.
And we did like a
What's
day
that?
and a half is what we did the last time.
And then, yeah, and then there was a community meeting.
Okay. Here was what?
There's gonna be.
So we had from 9 to noon on day 1. They did the tours, they did the inbox exercise, they had the citizen panel, so that's okay. And then we had the evening, the open house. The next day, we had interviews from the town and then we were done. So it was a day and a half.
So the 6th and the 7th would be the action days.
Or it could be the 5th and the 6th.
Well, except people may not want to fly on 4th of July.
You're gone on the 7th, is that what you said?
I'm gone on 7th. I mean, if the 6th and the 7th is the time, I can see if I can make other arrangements for that week.
So when is your family coming in?
Oh, that's middle of June,
Right,
June 2020, let me go back there.
We've already threw those dates out.
Yeah, sort of, yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so it seems like you would want them to fly on the 5th, show up on the 6th, have that full day on the 6th, and then the 7th. are
Half a day on the
interviews.
7th.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you would need to be there for the board interviews on the 7th. That's the issue.
No, I mean, I can make other arrangements for that.
Can the board interviews be on the 6th?
Leslie, do you have a comment or is your hand up from before?
Oh, no, my hand is up from before.
I mean, unless we care about the order of operations, we could do the board interview on the 6th and
And that doesn't create a conflict for you.
that wouldn't be a conflict for me. But for this, I mean, me being at a farmer's market is probably less of a priority than us interviewing a town manager, so
Well, I
I'm
mean,
happy
we
to do
could
that.
do it all in one day too. I mean, that's the other thing.
I don't think so, not with 4. 'Cause
No, not with Ford. That was with
Right.
2 people got Ford. So yeah, you're right. We can't do it with Ford.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I can make other arrangements for the 7th.
Oh, if you could, that'd be great, because then we have everybody, you're not, when are you going?
I will be back on the 6th.
Oh, you will be.
Oh, yeah, so
driving-
that's the day that they're doing other stuff out of town. You only
I
have
will
to
be
see on the
here
7th.
on the 6th.
Okay, so you could be there the night of the 6th for the
Yes.
open house. And
Yes.
then board interviews, all right, they sound like, I know it's a long way away, but
It's not that long.
It's not that long to fly.
I'm just afraid of them all getting jobs, but
Yeah, I was
Yeah, I
gonna say, like, pushing it out 3 weeks in all respect.
But it's a holiday.
I know we gotta have family and holidays, and everybody's doing their
Right.
stuff, but we could get this done next week, maybe.
I don't think we can get them here that soon.
I'll
Can we
bet
try?
you we could. I would love to try to get them here that soon. Because again, the board does not need to be involved on the first day, except in the evening. The only thing the board needs to commit to is the morning of the following day to do the board interview.
None of these guys have jobs right now, right?
I have
So
no
far.
I don't think so. What if it was Tuesday, the 20th? And then board interviews on the morning of the 21st? Wait a minute, when's,
You have to do it without me,
don't you have CML too?
because I'm leaving on the 18th.
Oh,
Yeah,
so you're gonna be gone that whole week, right? You're out altogether,
Until the 6th, yeah.
okay.
okay.
And I don't have a problem with not being here in person. I think we have a pretty good consensus on, we're gonna hire somebody really professional. And to be honest with you, I trust your judgment on it. I don't feel terrible about not being here. I would really like to participate, but I can't cancel this.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
what is today?
So, I mean, either we,
All right,
push
give it a
into next
shot. We
week.
could do 20th, 21st.
Yeah,
But I'm fine with the 6th and 7th too, if that works. It's a holiday weekend and it's a big holiday.
I know.
So traveling that week is probably gonna be a nightmare.
Yeah.
I would rather
You're
try
right.
to do it earlier than
Yes.
later. Yeah, I would, let's try for the 20th and the 21st.
Or the 19th, Monday?
20th and
That's a week
or the
away.
21st and the 22nd, whatever.
So I would fly in on the 20th and then activities are 21st and 22nd.
Yeah,
Boy, if we could fly them in on the 19th and have the activities be 21st.
We can do that.
yeah,
yeah,
I mean,
If they could, I mean, I, like he said, he's right. I just, if we, let me just think about this. So they come in, they need time to get here.
Yes.
Morning tours, inbox exercise, an open house that night.
Yeah.
And then 4 interviews. We've probably got a good, 4-ish hours we need to devote to those interviews.
oh, yeah,
Oh, probably 6, yeah.
yeah,
So, boy,
It's a
I
long-
think you have to let them come in on the 19th and
okay,
have the tour be on the 20th.
Yeah,
I think.
and if we interview on the 21st, which is a Wednesday.
Yeah.
I can not be in my cafe, so I can have that whole day.
okay.
If that's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are we gonna do if people can't fly in on the 19th?
Then we need to push it out.
This is a little out of the box, but what if, two candidates?
If we had to,
If it's
I'm just saying,
absolutely
it might
necessary.
work for two candidates to come in earlier and two candidates to come in later. It's a big time gap.
Yeah, I had enough,
Getting all four here all at the same time.
I know.
Stretch.
but yeah, I had enough trouble just trying to carry over all my impressions and everything,
Mhm.
and to put weeks between them,
ideally they'd be all here at the same time.
right?
Because having 2 open houses. Oh, let me just think about something. We have a housing
On Wednesday. At 5:20.
on Wednesday, the 21st. And it's already set up for here. It could be moved. But there's a housing task force meeting
Yeah.
on
that's-
June 21st at 5.
Yeah.
Well,
We
we
should be finished.
could start, I mean, if we start the interviews at 10 or 11.
We
Well,
will
no,
start.
the 21st. So
Yeah.
the 20th, we're thinking is the open house. Okay, we're good. I'm sorry, I was thinking the open house was on the 21st. So, do we do a first shot and see
Yes.
how many can do that?
Yeah,
I think
And where do
that's
we
the
tell them
start.
to fly into? Montrose? Or
Montrose.
Denver and Drive?
No, no.
no, unless they want to see the sinkhole.
I just did it all the way to Great Junction.
I know.
Oh, we could have them take Stevens Gulch and really just.
the only people who show up, if you showed up, you get the job.
That's right.
Okay, so have them fly in the 19th,
Right,
so a week from today.
tours open house the evening of the 20th, tours in the morning, and then 6:21 for interviews.
You got that, Thomas, too? You hearing those dates?
21st?
20th, 21st, fly in on the 19th.
Yeah, so we need to preferably be available on the evening of the 20th and then 6:21.
So that whole elaborate thing with the citizens committee,
We're just gonna pull that into the open house.
well, selecting.
No,
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 no
no.
selection needed.
Tomorrow.
Can we do?
No, we're getting rid of it. We're not doing
We're,
it.
the whole citizen committee is fine. We're gonna announce questions, ask for people for questions.
Okay.
And we'll do the questions.
If we-
So we really do have to do it soon if we get people.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's
But I guess-
tomorrow, we can,
Yeah, so
No,
if you can
that's
contact
the
all of them
first.
today and find out if they're even available to do it, then we'll
Right.
make announcements tomorrow and start
Right.
pushing it out on KDNF and everything else.
And then if it gets pushed to July, we have questions.
I know, yeah, that's our options.
That's where we're at.
Okay, so who's calling who? Do you want me to call for?
You know, it'd be better
Okay.
one person to coordinate than two people trying to
No,
coordinate.
and
all
I
that.
didn't call anybody before, that's why I'm asking. I didn't call to help with the arrangements, so now you and I,
Oh, who was doing?
you did it.
No, I didn't do any of the arrangements
Yeah.
for.
Because I didn't, anyway, why don't we, when we go into public meeting, you and I can confer afterwards, because I feel like you set it up, because one of them was at the Rocky Mountain Inn.
No, I did nothing of that.
Oh, because I didn't do it either. Who did it?
Oh, I wonder if she did it herself.
Who?
Melissa Fields-Alger.
No, well, maybe, anyway, we could confer afterwards on how to tell them where to stay, 'cause,
Isn't that a staff function?
you know, yeah, couldn't we?
Is that a staff function, Leslie? Could we have
Yeah.
staff be able to arrange rooms and the like?
'Cause now.
Yes.
It's
Okay.
public. Woo-hoo!
Okay.
So do you still need us to call to see if they can come on these
Oh, yes.
days?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and then the staff will do the arranging. Okay.
Yes.
So in this plan, what do, we being the, board, do on the 20th?
The 20th, we just basically need to be here for the, open house in the evening. And we'll figure out a time for that.
And was the inbox exercise in writing, Dave?
And then they present.
Submit that to us in writing.
No, they had time in here to complete the inbox exercise themselves. Then they turned it in at the end of the system. And then when it came time for us to interview, they opened up their handed their packets back and say, why don't you discuss it with the board?
Right, that was the beginning of their interview.
At the interview, okay, thank you.
Yeah, so that was not made public, because that was in their interview, and so that was also confidential in the executive session.
Is it in there?
Yeah,
I think we did keep that stuff.
yeah,
Even doesn't it?
How quickly all the details just.
fly away.
Good, so do we have, okay.
okay?
So we need to make sure staff's available to give the tours
Right,
too.
yes.
And so just remind you, you're gonna have to ask these to, or let these guys know that their names are gonna be published.
Right, they all were made aware of it during
Right,
the first
yeah.
interview.
Yeah.
But you're right, Leslie, you knew it. And that'll be published.
Names and resumes.
What's
Yeah,
that?
it's gonna be in the
Names and
next,
resumes.
Right.
Public
Right.
information.
because their names are going to be announced tomorrow evening,
Yes.
because we won't have time to put their resumes in the packet.
Can it go into the disbursement? Or,
We can make copies of their resumes, I guess.
Well, we can make copies and have them available for people that request them.
yeah,
Oh, that's true,
You
yeah.
mean tomorrow night, have some paper copies?
Just have some available on Wednesday morning in the office. That's what I would do.
Or website. If anybody requests that, you may talk at that time. Just put them all on. Okay, so do we know what we need the motion coming out of here,
Yeah, I need to do my final statement, so we need to,
Before we go on, do the four people include Kevin? or-
Yeah, also.
Yeah.
Kevin.
I wasn't quite sure who all was.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Okay. No, that's one. I hereby attest that this recording reflects the actual contents of the discussion at the executive session and has been made in lieu of any written minutes to satisfy the recording requirements of the open meetings law. I will hand the tape to the town administrator to retain for a 90-day period. The time is now 4:38 p.m. We now conclude the executive session and return to the open meeting. All right, knock on the door, let them know to get us out of that. Thank you, Thomas. That would be very good.